Hi everybody, it's Steve here. Just a quick note to clarify in case you missed the first part of the episode. After we originally recorded it, it felt a bit long, so it was cut down into two parts, the first of which is up already on SoundCloud. This is the second part, and once again I was joined by Derek McKenna and Jonny Stapleton from irishboxing.com. We went over the future of a fair few domestic boxers and touched upon the WSB and a snippet of world news. Thanks very much everyone for listening. So we've discussed the Mark Dunlop show and the Pat McGee. We'll just go on to a bit of any other business. We're running at just coming up to an hour, so we're not doing too badly. A few quick hits, really. Just briefly look over these fights as and when. Derek, Stephen Ormond, he's edging closer to a WBO title shot if he can defeat the undefeated Terry Flanagan on February the 14th in the picturesque city of Wolverhampton. What do you think about that one?
I'll take your word for it, Steve. Yeah, I think that's I'm actually really looking forward to Valentine's weekend because I'm not going to worry about sitting in by myself on Valentine's weekend. I'm actually going to relish it because you have two cracking fights that night. Well, obviously the Ormond one, which is huge for Stephen. It's not, it is a really difficult fight against Terry Flanagan. Terry Flanagan's really talented. He has the height and reach advantage, and it's not going to be an easy fight for Steve. But I really like Stephen Ormond. I think I love his busy style, the way he gets in close and he bangs really fast and gets back out of there again. And there's so much riding on that fight as well. I think if he wins this one, he potentially has a world title shot in, is it April, Jonny, against Diaz?
Juan
Diaz in April in Las Vegas. So it's a massive fight for Ormond. I fancy Ormond to do it, but then again I always fancy him to do it, so, and he rarely lets down, so yeah, it's going to be huge. And then obviously on the same night you have Luke Keeler as gym mate fighting in prize fighter as well, so it's a huge night for the Celtic Warriors gym. It's a pity that Pascal can't be there for both of them. He's going to be there for Steve. And I think Steve Collins is going to be doing Luke's corner on that night. But yeah, it's a great night of boxing on the 14th, so I'm really looking forward to both of those events.
Definitely. Jonny, what do you think about those two that Derek mentioned?
They're a great fight, and it's great to see Steve. I remember talking to Burnett when he retired and was saying Stephen is going to be the one to fill my mantle, but sort of similar to Jamie Conlan, wasn't it? He had a stop start and frustrations left, right and centre, and even still here for his big fight he has to go all the way to the picturesque city that is Wolverhampton. But I think Flanagan, his best win is against Gettings, and I think Steve stops him late on, makes a statement, and I think because he's had those troubles, he knows he's away, I think he's going to be mentally more prepared, more fired up for it, and I think we're going to see the best of Stephen Ormond this time out. And I think Luke has a great chance of winning the prize fighter, and I have a feeling Eddie Hearn would be happy if he won it too. He seems to have a bit of a Luke Keeler goo on him.
That's one way of putting it.
Yeah, and I don't know what that means.
Well, he loves Luke. Yeah. Star is born. He's tweeting and things. So, and if Luke wins that, and then you've got two Irish prize fighter winners, it all bodes well then for Matchroom coming back to Ireland, and then Ireland could be this hotbed of boxing, ITV, Matchroom. All we need to do, Ormond and world title fights. That night could really kick us on even further, and I think it's a winnable prize fighter for Luke, who allegedly is looking brilliant in the gym, and I think Ormond stops Flanagan.
I'd love to see Ormond win. I think it's a big ask. He could maybe get it on points, but Flanagan, he's been impressive, hasn't he? Right through the prize fighter. I know the version of Nate Campbell he beat was very faded. I'd love to see Ormond do it, but it's going to be a big ask. I've liked what I've seen of Flanagan so far. He's southpaw, isn't he? Quite wiry, rangy guy, awkward to fight against. If Stephen can get on the inside, then it's possible, but he doesn't want to get caught on the end of that southpaw jab. But I'd love to see Stephen do it. And then regarding Luke Keeler, he's got the power, hasn't he? We saw him in the I was going to say the O2, it's the 3 Arena, isn't it, there in November against Bolden. He's a guy who's been the distance, I think, with a go-go. He's a guy who doesn't get stopped easily, and Luke banged him out in the first round. He's got the power, he's got the skills. As long as he doesn't get dragged into a war, I could see him exercising the game plan to win that prize fighter, definitely.
I think that's probably the only issue, with Pascal not there. I think the one time Pascal wasn't there was in Belfast, and he did get dragged into a war. Now that could be just a once-off, but if some people were to try and raise doubts, and I think he could go on and do it, but that would be one issue. And just on the Flanagan Southpaw thing, Ormond was telling us that he loves to fight Southpaws.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Fought a lot early on over in America, he said, and he finds
the target a lot easier. So watch this when Ormond stops him.
No,
I'd love to see him do it. Obviously, I think it's on Box Nation, Derek. Is it that one?
It is, yeah. Like, just on a side note for Ormond, in some regard, you have to feel a little bit sorry for him, the way he's kind of promotionally he's being treated, because it seems like every fight that he's put in by Frank Warren, he's put in against someone that Warren wants him to lose against.
Yeah.
And you have to feel like, if Stephen Ormond had a different promotional route, you think he would have gone a lot further than where he is now. He's had a lot of setbacks and a lot of, obviously he is so close now to a world title, but there always seems to be something holding him back, and the big fights not being given to him and stuff like that. So you would hope it goes his way, and if he does win a world title, I hope he moves promotional stable probably, and he'll probably do a lot better, because I do feel he's being held back over the last couple of years, definitely.
He's done it the hard way, hasn't he? In spite of Frank, rather than because of him.
Yeah.
That is a fair shout. But speaking of the Celtic Warrior gym, Jonny, Spike O'Sullivan, we believe he's fighting in America. His name has been linked with the likes of Eubank Jr., who's obviously got his own fight against Chudinov. John Ryder, who you'd fancy Spike after Ryder's performance on Saturday night.
Definitely, yeah. Well, he's signed with Ken Casey, and by all accounts he's fighting on St. Patrick's Day in New York against a middleweight who holds 2 titles. I'm not sure you can say the name, but I think we have it on the site anyway. But so it looks like it could be a breakthrough fight for him. It's supposed to be on NBC, that fight. So and he was saying that no European fighter will fight him after they see the Fitzgerald stoppage. And I think if you hear about Spike sparring, he's supposed to hit like a mule. So there could be rumours around there where people say, well, Billy Joe beat him. Yeah, but if he catches you once, you're in trouble. So and I think he seems to have a lot more focus now. Maybe just as you get older, he seems to, I'm not saying he didn't train hard before, but he seems to be adding dietitian and all of this into his system and training off between camps, and you're looking at the rankings, what way to go here, what way to go there, and I think the Americans would love him, like this Charles Bronson lookalike. He doesn't bite his tongue, he's a big puncher, you don't have to go looking for him in the ring, and I think it could be a real breakthrough fight for him.
Yeah, he's always had that killer instinct. I remember Derek seeing him for the first time, I think it was back in 2008 at the National Stadium. It was maybe his second or third fight against a guy, Ty Williams, and he just completely ransacked this guy straight through him in the first round and just blew me away. I knew Spike was going to be a massive puncher and a real star from then on, but it was the Fitzgerald knockout there live on Sky that's really propelled him to that next level, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think to some regard that might work against him, because he's not getting the opportunities in Britain. Eubank Jr. seems to call him out every time Spike has a fight. Every time he signs up to a fight, Eubank starts calling him out. You're not going to get many fighters in Britain going to want to fight Spike when they look at that knockout. So maybe the American route is the sensible one to go. And it seems like, if he fights St. Patrick's Day on a big NBC show, he's going to get his name, especially if he wins a big fight there against a guy with 2 belts. The sky's the limit for him. He's up the rankings, and he could be knocking on the door for a world title shot without a doubt.
You get the feeling he's one big punch on that show away from, one sensational knockout away from putting his name on the lips of people across America and getting linked to title fights. And hopefully that's what happens.
I think one of the good things as well, Jonny, about the NBC deal is apparently they're going to be timed in the afternoon in America, so we'll be able to see them at a reasonable hour here, about 9:30 or 10, I'm led to believe.
We see them sober.
Yeah, I think some of them are, Steve, some of them are, the way it worked is Al Haven has bought up airtime basically, so he's just kind of bought the slots So some of those slots are primetime slots, but some of them are also Saturday afternoon slots. So obviously they're the type of ones that we would, if it's a Saturday afternoon slot there, we would get that nice and early here, probably 9 o'clock in the evening. And like Jonny said, we can probably remember those fights because we might be sober for them. So.
But it's good to see the Celtic Warrior gym when we go down there now. It's kicking, like you have big sexies down there training, not just the Celtic Warrior boys, there's other lads down there training, and you know, in Luke, Ormond and Spike, John O'Carroll, they fellas that are on a run full of real talent and could go all the way, like, and then Steve Jr. improving as time goes on, and then you've always got Big Kimsey down there who fight anyone anywhere and is always one to look out for a good Irish title fight, and he was telling us he's going to give it one more go as well. So that gym is really doing well. It's good to see a Dublin stable starting to, you know, with the dominance of Belfast, it's good to see a Dublin stable that's growing and good sparring, and Frank Guglielmi's in the gym as well, and hopefully that kind of knocks on to Dublin shows and ticket sales and so forth.
Comes and goes, doesn't it? The gyms, you know, they all have their sort of little time in the limelight. But you mentioned John O'Carroll there, obviously the prize fighter winner. He's signed with Matchroom. I mean, it's hard to think at the moment that he'll be returning to Ireland because there's no headliner for the shows. But obviously, at some point, if Eddie can build him up, then there's a good chance of him coming back in, you know, in an enhanced capacity. What do you think Eddie's going to do with him, Jonny?
It's a 5 fight a year, 3-year deal. Am I right, Derek?
Yeah, that's exactly.
So like he's 5 fights, but he's gone out to super featherweight, Steve.
Right.
So if he's kept busy, he's on. Obviously, as a prize fighter winner, he's going to get TV. He's going to get TV if he gets TV for a year, and if Luke, as possible, wins prize fighter and probably signs with him, there's definitely a chance that they could come back with them too eventually. But I think Derek always says it probably look like that they'll do. They could come back with Joshua top of the bill and do an Irish undercard, probably the safest way to do it. But in that way, it's pity Ormond's not signed with Matchroom or a free agent to go there, because if you had Ormond, Carroll, Keeler and Ormond on the verge of world title fights, and then you've got all them lightweights, British lightweights out there, and Eddie loves a good domestic fight, it just seems like a match made in heaven. Ormond Crawler, Ormond Matthews again, and so on.
Yeah, it certainly does. We mentioned Spike O'Sullivan, just moving on as well there, Derek. Anthony Fitzgerald, his most recent victim, he fights in Preston on March the 28th, probably a 6-rounder. We've seen Fitz sort of come back from these losses, maybe not as devastating as the Spike one, obviously, but you know, he seems to just carry on regardless. He's got a lot of losses on his record, but he'll be back in the gym, back in a 6-rounder. He will get more opportunities. Yeah,
I think like there's definitely fights out there for Anto. I think he's dropping down to light middle now. Well, that was the last news we had. I'm sure. I don't know whether that's a definite, but the last time we spoke to him after the Spike fight, his intention was to drop down to light middle. And there are big fights out there at light middle for Anto. I'm not sure if the Hogan fight would be there. I think Jonny had said to me before that Hogan might not come back here to fight for the Irish title, because if he does come back and fights for the Irish title, he loses his world rankings.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
Yeah, so that maybe that fight is not there, but you know, Anton is still a very a lot of people will be fooled by that knockout and think that, you know, he's a spent force or anything like that, but Anto's a very, very tough fighter, and he was caught by a good punch, and it can happen to anybody. But you know, Anto will be back, and there's definitely big fights there for him, especially now that he's fighting out of MGM, and there seems to be a good relationship there between MGM and Eddie Hearn. So you know, Eddie will put Anto in with some of his fighters, and you know, big fights there.
Anto can make a big fight out of any fight. You know, he talks up a fight great, and like Derek says, if there's a relationship with Matchroom, he might get a shot at one of them light middleweights and cause an upset.
Maybe against someone like a D. Walsh. I mean, Anto's come back from knockouts before. He got knocked out, didn't he, on the Burnett Dunn undercard, and it made him more resilient, more focused. A fight between him and D. Walsh, Jonny, would you fancy that?
That'd be a cracking fight. D. Walsh really impressed me last time out, and if you ever wanted to test it, would be Anto, and that fight itself, with the amount of, you know, how great I am, waxing lyrical stuff D. Walsh can do, and then how I'm going to kill you talking Anto can do. But that would be a cracking fight. That would be, and you know, it most likely be a small hall show, but it could bring small hall to the next level. Like it pack the place out, and Anto sells a ticket. The thing about Anto is he loses, he doesn't care. He comes back and will prove himself the next time.
Yeah.
But D Walsh, the last time I seen him, I thought was terrific, and he seems to be settling at the weight. Happy down there and showing power at that weight too. And he looks a real talent, and he can talk too, and he's a bit flashy, brings a crowd too. I think D Walsh is one to look out for this year.
Yeah, like I think D could legitimately feel hard done by that he didn't win Prospect of the Year this year. I think, he was obviously just pipped by John O'Carroll, and you couldn't deny it to John O because he won prize fighter. But D Walsh was a very legitimate candidate there for a Prospect of the Year after winning his Irish title, and I think he's a superb boxer as well. I actually really enjoy watching him. So it'll be interesting to see, does he defend that title? I know when we spoke to Gerard Healy was saying that maybe he might give up the title and let Gerard fight for it and stuff like that. So or does he make the step up to European level now and go on from there? But I'm looking forward to seeing D again. Hopefully in the next month or two we'll be out on the next Mark Dunlop show. A very talented boxer.
Yeah, he is. He's very talented. I would like to see him defend against, if it could be made, someone like Peter McDonough or John Hutchinson. Yeah. Or if he is going to drop the Irish title, I'd like him to move on to maybe Celtic title or British title eliminator or something like that.
John Hutchinson, just probably some fresh news. I think he just put up on Facebook today. He's going to live in Thailand and fight Muay Thai. Which was a bit shocking when I heard that today. But he's hoping to keep up the boxing and to break into the Australian boxing scene. John put out there today, so maybe that's an Irish fight that's off the agenda for the next little while anyway. But some kind of fresh news there that's what John's up to at the moment.
Oh well, thanks. Cheers for chucking that in, Derek. I didn't hear that one. So good luck to John. He's always been an honest fighter on the boxing scene, so hopefully it'll work out for him. And you were talking about the MGM gym as well, and I suppose that leads on Matthew Macklin. Wasn't sure whether he'd box again actually, Jonny, but he seems to be back on Birmingham and May the 9th on the Frankie Gavin undercard. Is he saying that he's looking to see what he's got left, or is Eddie putting him out to sell a few tickets? Or what's the truth of this sort of comeback as sorts?
I'm not sure, but look, basically Macho doesn't need the money. I don't think he's been in big fights, and he had Brian Peters in his corner, so probably got well paid for them too. So I don't think he's stuck for money, and I think it's a genuine desire to be a world champion. At 12 o'clock, over a few points after the Tree Arena, it didn't look like all of us thought it was game over for him. But then when people start saying that maybe he overtrained at that age and he's not shot and so forth, well, you start to develop hope. And look, there's no harm in having one more look to see if he feels it again, and if he does, well, it could lead to a Lee fight eventually, which would be massive for Irish boxing.
Do you think that could eventually happen, Derek, or is that
it's something that I said all along, and I kind of never thought Macklin would retire. I always had a sneaking suspicion that he, the way that last fight finished, that he would want to come back and test himself one more time, because I think he still has questions to answer in his own head, and I would have preferred probably to see him take a little bit more time out, because there's not a huge amount of time between the last fight in November and this one in May, so it's not as if he's taking an extended break to let his body refresh itself and stuff like that. But I still think the possibility of a Lee fight is still there. I think Lee will find the fight more attractive now, because Lee will have looked at that Macklin fight and thought to himself, well, maybe he won't pose as much of a threat as he used to pose. But I think that would be foolish of Lee. I think Macklin still has a lot to offer. Potentially, I think the next fight will tell us a lot, but potentially Macklin has a lot still to offer. So it'd be interesting.
You're going to tell us he should have retired, Steve, aren't you?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd like to see him get a handy fight in May. Like, if he's going to be chief supporter or whatever, which he probably will be, it's got to be like a 10-rounder or an 8-rounder or something like that. But I'd like to see him get a handy enough fight, because he's had a lot of hard fights. The fights against Sturm and Martinez, he gave it his all, and he's been a true warrior and a real gentleman of the sport, and I'd like to see him go out on a high. I wouldn't like to see him go out as an opponent. Who can forget the fight with Jamie Moore? I mean, it seems so long ago, 10 years ago now, or whatever it was. You'd almost forget that, but it was an amazing fight, and he's paid his dues. I wouldn't like to see him go out as an opponent. That would be my main concern. So if he has nothing to offer, I'd like to see him retire.
Do you think they could be just bringing him in as a ticket seller or opponent, sell a name to somebody?
It was suggested. That wasn't my suggestion, but somebody said it, I think, on Twitter. And
who would they be selling them to, basically?
Well, it's because it's in Birmingham, I suppose. I mean, that was the...
But as an opponent for somebody, if you...
No, as the attraction, not as the opponent for somebody else. In this case, no, not as the opponent. Not yet. But no, I wouldn't like to see him go out as an opponent, so I'd like to think that he would have enough wherewithal, which I'm sure he has, to know that if his time is up, his time is up, because we don't like to see fighters going on for too long.
Yeah, I think he will make that decision. I think, like he has said, he needs to get back in there to see has he got what it takes at that level. And I think if he doesn't put on a really good performance in May, I think you could see him hang up his gloves then. But I think because he hasn't been impressive in his last two performances, obviously the last one he lost in Dublin, but the one before that, which was put down to the fact that he was out at 6 o'clock in the evening in Germany, and it was felt that he couldn't get himself up for that type of fight because it was so early on the undercard of was that the Paul Smith fight, or
I think it was Smith Abraham.
Abraham, yeah, it was. So he hasn't been impressive obviously in the last two fights. But if he is impressive in May, there's nothing stopping him going on to getting back in there. And the way boxing, you can never predict the way things go. I think if 4 months ago or 5 months ago, Andy Lee wasn't even on the radar for a world title, and 4 months later he's world champion. So who knows in middle of next year whether Matthew Macklin could be on the radar if the fight with Billy Joe Saunders falls through for Lee. Macklin may be seen as a viable replacement there. So who knows, midway next year. I called it here first, by the way, if it's happened.
It's a funny old game, isn't it? You do see things like that happening all the time. And Jonny, as Macklin's career sort of, comes to a close, one guy who's just starting off is young Jason Quigley. I wouldn't go so far as to say he's under the radar, but considering he's fighting for Golden Boy Promotions, huge stage in America, superb amateur career, he's sort of ticking along in the background. Would that be fair to say with this next fight in Los Angeles? I mean, how far do you see him going?
Yeah, it is a strange one that he signed to the biggest promotion company, one of the biggest promotion company in the world, and they're publicising him to a good bit. But over this side, he's not mentioned too much. And just as he was getting a lot of publicity as one of the amateurs, good-looking boy, he can talk, he can fight. There was a nice story there. He came out of basically nowhere to go on. I think it was a 30-fight winning streak or something, was it? Where he picked up and won the seniors and Europeans and made the world's final. And then he's kind of half off the radar. But he certainly is a talented kid, and he certainly has the right people behind him, and already they're pushing him. I think he's top of the bill on this card, Steve. I'll have to just double check that.
That's a huge platform for him if he is.
And I think it's on Fox as well. I don't know whether they have like a Fox 1, 2, 3.
Fox Sports maybe.
Fox Sports is fairly big. Yeah, it's probably the biggest, isn't it? It's one of the biggest.
Well, it's on Fox Sports, yeah, and he's top of the bill, so he's going definitely in the right direction. And 2 or 3 years down the line, we could be talking about Cummins and Quigley, which will be a great fight. It just all happening, isn't it? Like, we can even look 3 and 2 years down the line now and predict big Irish derbies that could be world title fights. I wouldn't say 12 months ago or 24 months ago we would have been able to do that.
Yeah, like, and even you can throw Keeler in there as well, like,
Yeah, so Luke as well now.
It's really good middleweights coming out of Ireland at the moment, like, so it's and I know D Walsh is light middle, but throw him into that mix as well potentially in a year or two's time. A lot of talent there, like, so it's.
It'd be nice to see him come back as well at some point, the way Brian Peters sort of got Macklin and Andy Lee back from America and John Duddy. You know, it'd be nice to see them sort of, maybe if Peters could get involved and bring Quigley back for a fight or two over here, to, you know, because he does need to fight over here, you'd think, despite the platform in America.
I know Eddie Hearn tried to get him on the November show on the Macklin undercard. There was talk, obviously, of Quigley and John Joe being on that undercard, but Quigley, I think, fought 2 or 3 weeks before that, and then they kind of ruled it out. But there was talk of Eddie Hearn trying to get him back here, so.
Would like to see that. Definitely would like to see that. Jonny, we're sort of flying through them. There's, like you said, there's that many. But we've got Tyson Fury down here. I mean, he's fighting on the same night as Frampton Avalos for the WBO international title in London against the guy Christian Hammer. Not really sure how much he has to offer, but at the moment for Fury, it's about keeping active, cementing his rating. He's not going to take any fights with too much undue risk and reward, is he? While he's got the sort of world title in his eyes, do you think a world title fight is finally going to come off for him? Because he seems to have been waiting for ages.
But Steve, the Wilder winning that world title is massive for Tyson Fury. That fight would be huge. Imagine the pre-fight press conferences; it'd be just unbelievable. Forget taping his mouth; they'd have to put a big gag over him. It would be unbelievable, and that I think I wouldn't do that too soon. I'd let that build over a year, and it could be, you know, one of the biggest fights we've seen in a long time, not just in terms of British or Irish boxing, but around the world. And I'm just so delighted that he actually fought for an Irish title in a week, claiming for the site and get the hits out of him.
What do you think, Derek? Fury against Deontay Wilder? It'd be fun in and out of the ring.
I'm a big fan of Wilder. I was absolutely delighted that he won I think he's probably the most exciting thing to happen to the heavyweight division in a good while. In my book, I think he's an exciting fighter. Talks a good talk, and you know, I tend to I've got very bored with the heavyweight division, as have a lot of people over the years with the likes of the Klitschko's. They don't excite me, and others that have been in the heavyweight division. I think Wilder, if he can hold on to that title, that there's, you know, a lot of people still doubt him. They said, you know, he had knocked out so many people before 3 rounds, and as I heard somebody saying during the week, the first time he was actually put in with anybody decent, and I don't know whether people would call Stavern decent, but the first time he was put in with anybody decent, he was took 12 rounds by him. But I saw that as a positive for him. I thought he didn't gas out, obviously. He boxed well, and he kind of, you know, he dominated that fight against Stavern. So I'd really think him and Fury would be, like Jonny says, a massive fight on both sides of the Atlantic. And really exciting fight. I don't think it'll happen in the short term. I think like Jonny said, it might be a year and a half away, but it would be a massive fight if it happens.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree with you. Talking of big heavyweights, you're not excited by the heavyweights, Derek? I don't blame you, actually, so I'll start with you on this one.
Big Sexy out there.
Well, Big Sexy's there, and he's been having a bit of Twitter beef with Con Sheehan, who's just turned pro. Well, what's happening there? Big Con, is he signed with anybody, or is he making his own fights via the social network? Jonny, sorry.
No, he's not signed. He said he's talking to a few people. It seems strange to turn pro before the seniors if he wasn't signed, but I done an interview with him and he's talking a good game. He's not, you know, he's not here to hang around. He's not here just to make up the numbers. He's talking about going towards the top, and you know, he is in the era of joint heavyweights, a joint man, a decent amateur background. He certainly could work his way up the rankings, you know, the way other fighters have, or even take some of the fighters Wilder fought early in his career and do it that way. But yeah, it's great for us to have another heavyweight in the scene, and in terms of that fight, it'd be a big fight over here, and you know, but I think let it build for a while as well. An Irish title fight, Big Con the Bomb and Big Sexy. It definitely
be a good one,
Derek.
It'd be a good one, wouldn't it? That, I mean, Big Sexy was sort of alluding to the fact that Con was a bit of a runner with no power. Yeah. Was there just a bit of talk there?
I thoroughly enjoyed that little spat on Twitter today. It gave me a good giggle. I don't think it's a fight that will happen, although it would be great. Con was saying it would be a great fight for his debut. Well, I think it would be a brave promoter to put him in against Big Sexy on his debut. But yeah, it would be an excellent fight. It is a pity that some of those fights kind of don't happen more often. Those all Irish fights, and like I'm a big fan of, the best fight of last year was John O'Carroll and Declan Garrity, just because I had that local derby type thing, and it is a pity that we don't see more of those type of fights. But yeah, Big Sexy and Conchine would be excellent. Maybe in a year or two it might happen, but not in the short term.
He's over there sparring with Fury at the minute, so he's probably getting Twitter advice and wind-up advice as well as boxing advice off Team Fury. That's where that came from.
Yeah, I think we definitely let that one build. And the last person I've got on the list, I'm sure I've forgotten some, is a guy I'm actually quite heavy on myself, although he's a bantamweight, young Ryan Burnett, who fights in London on March the 27th over 6 rounds. He's left Ricky Hatton. He said there was no animosity, everything's fine, but he's now with Adam Booth after a bit of a period of uncertainty, and he's gaining momentum, Derek. We saw him in the Devonish, and he really has the talent, doesn't he, Burnett?
Yeah, an excellent fighter. And was that first or second round knockout in that fight? I think it was
the first round. I think he got rid of him pretty quickly.
Yeah, he looked impressive. And you would assume that Booth rates him very highly, because I don't think Adam Booth just takes on fighters kind of willy-nilly. I think he kind of vets the fighters that he's taken on. Like, obviously he took on Lee, and now he has Burnett as well, but he doesn't just pick up fighters easily. So he rates him really highly. I think, Jonny, you spoke to Adam Booth about Ryan Burnett as well, and he was full of compliments about him as well, wasn't he?
He was basically saying, watch out, we'll get him to 10 fights and then really watch out for him. He has all the attributes to go to the top. And anytime you've seen him, he's been impressive. Remember the time he fought on a Frampton undercard, Steve, and he took on a decent opponent and stopped him as well.
The Nicaraguan, I think it was Cajinas. He looked very impressive. I think that was the parody undercard.
Yeah, and that was a big jump up in level, and probably his third or his fourth fight only. So he said, and what he does do is he generates a bit of excitement around Belfast as well when he's fighting, or we noticed from the site interest. Mention Ryan Burnett, and he's already sort of half a known name. Because of his youth Olympic success, so he already has a bit of backing and a bit of support behind him, and he definitely looks like he has the talent.
I know that Adam Booth gets a bit of stick in some quarters. He's not everybody's cup of tea, but I think he's an excellent trainer. Or he's more of a mental trainer. He seems to know the right things to say. He seems to be on the ball most of the time with his game plans. I know in the Mike Perez fight against Bryant Jennings, he sort of be saying the right things, but Mike just wasn't doing them. But what's your take, Jonny, on Booth? Are you a fan? Or?
Yeah, well, anytime you talk to Andy Lee knows his boxing, and when he was looking for a new, trainer, what Booth would say in the corner would resonate with him, and he remembered that and then went toward Booth. So I think you call it right. He seems to know the right things to say, and he seems to have these pre-fight mental game plans as well, getting people ready and so forth. So he seems to, and he's done well for Andy. Now you'd worry a little bit that they wait. We're going to land a knockout punch. Don't worry, you're going to land a knockout punch. Just wait for it. Like, the fight could have slipped away, but I suppose the tactic worked in the end, and they were proved right.
He's no, I'm definitely a big fan of Booth, but
if you're a fan of him, Steve, I'm a fan of him.
I'm not sure. Well, okay, we'll just leave it there. But is there anybody that I've missed? Anyone you lads can think of? I mean, I'm sure in a future show we can put them on. But is there any guys I've missed off?
I think Declan Garrity's coming back.
I was going to say that. Yeah.
Film. Trying to think.
I think he has a fight lined up. It could be March, April time. Yeah, I know he's back in training.
Fighting in the Villa Park again, isn't he?
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah, he's fighting in Villa Park again. Yeah.
So it'd be good to see him come back. But we must have name dropped 30 fighters from start to finish. I'll say it again, Irish boxing is just booming at the minute. And if you think of how well the amateurs do, and if some of them turn pro, well then we'll probably have to set up 3 sites to keep up.
Well, say the time's knocking on, so I say we'll wrap up soon. But just before we do, talking about guys turning pro and moving over from the amateur code to the professional code, there's a sort of middle ground, isn't there, with the World Series of Boxing? I mean, I'll admit myself, I don't really follow it as closely as I can, only because there's just so much, like you said, to keep your eye on, and you're trying to find all the fights and hard to keep up with it. I mean, how much do you follow it, Jonny? There's the likes of Paddy Barnes, Michael Conlon, I think Stephen Donnelly's in it as well. Are you a big fan of the WSB and what's going on regarding the Irish fighters?
No, you definitely have to watch the Irish fighters and see how they get on, and they are fighting quality fighters at their weight. Like, they're not, at a sort of like in professional fights, and it might benefit them that way, but you kind of just half want it to fail, and I don't know if that's just being old fogey wanting just give me amateurs, give me pros, I know where I'm at. like you don't want to give it full support because you'd be half wanting it to fail, if that makes sense. Like, it's getting too much for me at the minute.
What about you, Derek? Is it a bit too much for you as well?
I haven't watched the other guys. I've watched Barnes and Conlon's both fights in the WSB. The first set of fights, I think Conlon lost in that one, which I thought was a strange decision. I probably would have had Conlon winning it. The judgment was wrong. Barnes looked really impressive, and then a couple of days ago, I think it was, that Barnes was really impressive in his victory. I think they were fighting a Puerto Rican team, and Conlon stopped his guy. I think it was in round 3, but it given him a few standing counts. He hadn't knocked him kind of clean out. The guy got a few standing counts, and the referee stopped it. But
I think he needed the stoppage to something to do with Olympic qualifications to get his sort of points rating back up. So he called, he was going for the stoppage and went out and got it, which is impressive.
Yeah, but like I do keep kind of I wouldn't say I'm a dedicated follower of it, but I have the website kind of registered, and you can watch it free. The WSB, you can watch the fights free. So if I know the fights are coming up, I'll kind of keep an eye out for them. But I think I wouldn't be as sceptical as Jonny about it. I think it has potential. It really is a pity that Ireland doesn't have its own team.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
funding wise, it would never happen, I don't think, because I do believe it costs a lot of money. Again, Joe O'Neill on our site ran through a possible Irish WSB team. I think he called them the Wolfhounds. It was like a fantasy team, and the potential talent on there was amazing. But he went into stuff like the funding. You would need a massive sponsor to fund the cost of it, so it's not likely. But it is a pity that we don't have our own team and have to farm out our talent around the world to different franchises.
Yeah, well, that's something maybe in future weeks we'll maybe keep an eye on and have a chat. So before we close, lads, just a very brief word on the sort of non-Irish boxing related stuff. The only one thing really is, if we just briefly cover the one fight that everybody sort of wants to see, the one fight that everybody has an opinion on. Is it ever going to happen? We don't know. We thought there might be an announcement, obviously, Mayweather-Pacquiao that I'm talking about during the Super Bowl, but nothing came up. Jonny, I mean, is this going to happen? Who do you think would win? Will we ever see them in the ring together?
Is it going to happen? It's gone down to who knows now, but I think if it doesn't happen, if Pacquiao is bent over backwards to just get the fight on and accept it all, Mayweather's terms and conditions, well then it shows Mayweather's not too keen on the fight. I would have Mayweather as favourite, but the fact that he's not too keen makes me think, does he know something, or does he feel Pacquiao will give him problems, or is it just that he doesn't want to give Pacquiao the fight and give him the chance to steal his legacy?
It's the biggest money-making fight, obviously, probably in the history of the sport, Derek, and Mayweather loves the money, as we all know. Is it just come down to legacy now? He sees himself as this TBE, this best-ever character. He just doesn't want to put his O on the line, or is there more to it than that? Yeah,
I was disgusted. I waited up until about 3 a.m. the other night waiting for it to announce at the Super Bowl, and had to sit through American football for hours hoping for the fight to be announced, and then it didn't happen. But will it happen? I get more skeptical all the time. I was hopeful last week. It looked like, that it was a carefully choreographed thing at the basketball game where they met, and it was all set up for a big announcement at the Super Bowl and everything like that. But I would tend to agree with you there, kind of TBE, best ever. I think is Mayweather on 49 fights now. I have a feeling he wants to get to 50-0 and just call it a day. And I think he sees the Pacquiao fight as too dangerous. But then again, there's Amir Khan is another one being touted as a fight there. I think that's a very dangerous fight for Mayweather as well. So I think if he wants to be considered the best ever, he has to fight Pacquiao. Will it happen? I don't know. I become more and more skeptical all the time because it is Mayweather avoiding that fight because, like you say, potentially it could be the biggest fight in the history of boxing, money wise and probably viewership figure wise. That has the potential to just get the average casual fan would pay pay-per-view for that. It would be massive. So
could we get Frampton Santa Cruz on the undercard?
Well, possibly, yeah. But what kind of made me skeptical as well, there was a Emirates group willing to put up something like 150 million for the fight, for it to be staged in Dubai and stuff like that, and they came out and said afterwards that Mayweather was just impossible to deal with, and they felt that he wasn't actually interested in having the fight. He was just kind of stringing people along. So it all seems to point to that Mayweather doesn't want that fight.
I think one of Mayweather's many demands is that if the fight's going to happen, it has to be in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, where he's based now, and it has to be on his terms. If Jonny, the Mayweather fight, the Pacquiao fight, doesn't come off, I'd like to see an Amir Khan fight, because if you look at Mayweather's last sort of string of opponents, you got the likes of Ortiz, Guerrero, the two Maidana fights, Alvarez. They're all the same sort of stylistic fighters. They're all like sort of slow-footed South American come forward guys, whereas Khan brings this rapid hand speed. We all know he has this fragility about him, but I tend to think Khan does have the speed to give Mayweather problems. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, if you talk to a lot of people, say the Irish fighters that sparred Khan and Pacquiao, they'd say you prefer to spar Pacquiao any day, because you're in paddock gloves and headgear, so you're not going to have a chance probably knocking out Khan. So if you were to fight one, you might pick Khan because you have a knockout chance. But they were saying the speed of Khan was just impossible to deal with, and he caused you problems. And I think Mayweather, I think you called it right there. They're all similar style of fighters, and the speed of Khan could cause them problems. And I understand why Khan would wait around for that fight. Imagine being the man to defeat Floyd Mayweather, where it leaves you. And I know that people saying to him, what do you want to fight Mayweather for? Or Eddie Hearn suggesting you should be fighting Kell Brook. It's more money in it, but the chance of beating Mayweather, and if they do think they could cause him problems, where does it leave you to be the best ever? What?
If you beat the man, do you become the man, Derek? Do you go along that type of thinking, or?
Yeah, to a certain degree. Like I was actually listening to an interview with Khan this morning, and that's he is not totally given up on the idea of fighting Mayweather, but like from his perspective now, Mayweather doesn't want the fight at the moment, doesn't want the Khan fight because he's looking at other options. But Khan is also talking about if the fight with Mayweather falls through, that he might fight Pacquiao, but he said, Khan had said if Pacquiao fights Mayweather, he would want Mayweather to win, because he would still want the opportunity to beat Mayweather and be called, the man who beat the best ever type thing, so that's, like you say, do you beat the man, do you become the man? So that's what Khan is looking for. He wants to fight Mayweather as an undefeated fighter. So I don't know. I think I'd agree with Jonny to a certain degree that Khan has the potential to cause Mayweather trouble with his speed. But would you ever back against Mayweather as well? He's so hard to hit. So it's difficult.
No. Can you see Mayweather Pacquiao being done, Steve?
I'm getting more hopeful. I was getting more hopeful last week because I heard that sort of Bob Arum was making more positive noises, and it sounded like it would happen. But I know that it's sort of everyone's jumping on the bandwagon and blaming Mayweather for not making the fight happen. And I suppose I do fall in that camp myself. It does seem to be Mayweather. We know he has the history of demanding certain types of gloves, like against Maidana. He drags Saul Alvarez down to the weight, and practically he was a skeleton on the scales. And I just thought whenever the Alvarez-Cotto fight fell through, it was just going to be perfect for Mayweather to then announce he was moving up to middleweight, make history, beat the WBC champion. And we know that the first Cotto Mayweather fight made like 1.5 million pay-per-views, which was the most ever for Mayweather. Just thought it all fell into place for Mayweather to take that fight. But I think Mayweather would lose a lot of credibility if he was to fight Cotto and if the Pacquiao fight weren't to come off. Because then what would he do after he beat Cotto, which he probably would? Is he going to fight Golovkin? No. Yeah. He's gonna have to drop the belts, isn't he? Yeah. So he's going to have to do something. But I remain sceptical. I was a little bit more enthusiastic that the fight was going to happen, but at the moment I'll probably be glass half empty and saying no, I don't think it's going to come off, unfortunately. But I would love to see it, and well, I suppose that's it then lads. I mean, we've sort of exhausted pretty much ourselves, and if anybody's still listening at this point,
have to get the last bus home.
Yeah, Johnny's gonna have to get the last bus home. So, I mean, I suppose we just wrap it up. But I'd like to say, huge thanks to you lads, Jonny, Stapleton, and Dave McKenna for agreeing to come on. I just felt that this was something that we could, sort of get started and run with, and people would like it. I mean, you got any closing thoughts or any more comments that you want to make? Or
no, just say it seems a good idea just to come on and chat boxing, and if we could open it to the floor to be able to chat with people that do post on forums and attack us for certain things we say, and all, you'd probably be able to get a bit of debate and banter going.
Yeah, it seems to be after big fights as well. People want to have a say about the main events, and also people want to have a say about the undercard fights. People wanted to talk John O'Carroll, Declan Geraghty, but there's not the sort of platform out there because nobody else wants to listen, apart from the likes of us. Derek, is there anything?
Yeah, look, just thanks for having us on as well, Steve. I think it's great if we can open up the floor, like Jonny says, if we can get people. There's so many people on Twitter or on forums or even on Facebook or anything like that who like to have their opinion. So it would be great if we could get them on. And just natural way about boxing, it's an enjoyable thing to do. So I'm sure we'll get people interested in having a chat. There's a lot of people very interested. So yeah, it would be good to keep it going forward.
Okay, well, before we close off, I've been Steve Wellings. You can find me, excuse me, at irishboxingreview.com. All the books are on Amazon. The guys are on Twitter, Facebook, irish-boxing.com. Plenty going on the site at the moment, lads, yeah?
Too much sitting on record.
Plenty of videos and stuff. No, that's great. Thanks very much, everybody, for listening, and we'll hopefully catch you again soon. Thanks for